Look what Amy got me at the store the other day. She got me some corned beef. So you know what that means. I'm going to make me some corned beef and cabbage. Today we're going to be using the Instant Pot because it's so much faster than the traditional ways. Corned beef is normally it's a very tough meat. They inject some stuff to tenderize it, but still it takes several hours if you're going to cook it on the stovetop or put it in the oven and braise it that way. This thing is store-bought. It's all ready to good to go. There's virtually no prep work involved. Anybody can do this. So if you've been, kind of on the sidelines, not wanting to make one, watch my show. This will be easy. It's going to come out great, and we're going to have a fun old time. So join me as we make corned beef and cabbage using the Instant Pot. All right, you can see we got one of these corned beefs that's store-bought already put together for us, right? Get in here. They talk about it's tenderized with peipan, which is a papaya extract. Pineapple is another extract that's a meat tenderizer. They cured it with 35% salt water along with the pink agents, the sodium nitrate flavorings and stuff, to make this all so wonderful. Otherwise, they could have just brined it for like several weeks if they wanted to. So they make it sound like this is going to be really tasty, but at this point, it's going to be really salty. So the first step we're going to do is get this meat out of the package, get it rinsed off of all the junk, and get the little spice packet that's included out. All right, we're dealing with a brisket. In this case, this is a flat, so it's a tough cut of meat, right? If you're going to cook it the normal braising way, it can take an hour per pound. This is a 3-pound, so this would take 3 hours or close to it. We're going to cut that a little short using the pressure cooker, right? But I went ahead and I washed it off. You can kind of see it looks, not all red and disgusting like it was a few minutes ago. And that's partially because they injected with a lot of salt, a lot of juices were covered in salt, and I don't want this coming out tasting salty. I mean, you can always season it to taste if you want, but when you cook it in a big pot with a lot of water, a lot of that salt's going to come out. We're going to be pressure cooking, and while some may come out, and obviously, if you had like potatoes and stuff to absorb it all, and believe me, we're going to get a lot of flavor in those guys later on. So this guy goes in the pot the way he is. We're doing it fat side up. If you have a rack in your IP, you can put on your rack if you want. I don't think it really matters. We're doing fat side up. That's how we always like to cook our brisket. All right, we put this bad boy in there. That was easy, right? Now comes the fun part. We're going to put in our spices. So in this case, it comes with this little spice packet that's dripping everywhere. See that right there? So he goes in there, and I'm just going to go ahead and put him on the side, sprinkle him over. I really don't care. He's just going to go all over the place. And he's in there. But that doesn't really seem like a lot of spices for this guy. I want a little bit of flavor. So this is where you can get creative, right? You can put anything in here you want. First of all, let's start with some of the choices. We like Miss Dash for a lot of things. It's a general purpose seasoner, and it comes with a lot of stuff. And this one has no salt in it, which is good because this guy has enough salt as it is. You can always salt later. This is Sunny Paris in case you have Penzies nearby you or if you want to order on the internet. That has shallots and a bunch of tasty things in there. A couple of teaspoons of either seasoning will help wake this up as well. But in my case, I'm just going to go ahead with some straightforward stuff. So if you're ready, we're throwing in 3 bay leaves. Dink, dink, throw them down there. We have 1 teaspoon of freshly dehydrated thyme. That's the stuff Amy did in the Kasori dehydrator recently, so it's powerful. We have 1 tablespoon of onion powder. I told you there's no prep work, right? Otherwise, you can take a medium onion and quarter it up and throw it in there. It's going to get beat up. Garlic. We have a teaspoon of granulated garlic powder here. You can take 6, 8 cloves, whatever you like, and throw those in. Or take a teaspoon of the powder stuff. And we have a teaspoon of black peppercorns, and we're just gonna go ahead and throw that in there. And see, the spice part is done now. All right, now the fun part. We're almost done here, right? What kind of liquid to add? We have so many choices. We can add plain water. We can add some beer. We can add chicken stock, chicken broths, low sodium, normal sodium, beef broth, beef stock, whatever you want. The idea is to give this guy some flavor. Now, right now we know there's a bunch of salt that's been injected into him, and that helps with flavor and stuff, but we don't want too much of that, right? If you're on a sodium restricted diet, well, first of all, this is questionable, right? But to moderate a little bit, you can just put plain water in there, and that helps, of course, and then season it to taste later. You can also use low sodium products, and those shouldn't hurt. If you add high sodium products, you might be at risk of it coming out a little too salty. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to be adding a lot of water with a little bit of beer, and I'm not going to be adding any kind of a broth, and I'm not adding any salt. So at this point, we're going to add some Irish stout here, right? Some Guinness. Why? Because that's got a bunch of flavor, right? You just see all that going in there. Yeehaw! Oh, that's just so lovely in there. And then I've got 2.5 cups of plain water. The idea is to add somewhere in the ballpark of 4 cups of water. It's going to be enough to get this guy cooking. You have plenty of liquid in here, and it's going to do good for us. So now it's time to seal it up. All right, you can see right here, you just want to inspect your lid to the Instant Pot before you put it in use. Make sure you got this little guy in there, because you can remove him to wash your lid and everything, and then you put him back on there. We want to make sure he stays protected. Obviously he's functional, so that's good. And make sure you got the gasket in place here, because we don't want to have any problems, right? And then you just put the lid on, arrows to the side over here, snaps in place like that, and we're good. Most pressure cookers have a common way to seal. You turn a knob one way and it seals, the other way and it releases. This is the Ultra Instant Pot, and it has a remote button, so maybe you're less likely to get scalded when you release it. I don't know. So this guy's a little different. So if you have this model, he's a little different. I'm just going to show you this one really quick. When you want to release it, you just push it down and this guy comes up. When you actually want to seal it, like what we want to do, you push this and he comes up. So down, this guy comes up, and when you want him to go down, which is what we want, this guy has to come up. It's that easy. Otherwise, you just turn one clockwise and counterclockwise and you're good. So that's it. Also, make sure that this guy right here, this is your condensate collector. Otherwise, you might have a little mess. All right, we're ready to turn this puppy on now. Every pressure cooker is a little different with the knobs, but the bottom line is we want to cook this on high pressure for about 90 minutes, and we're going to do a 10-minute natural release, aka unplug it and let it release, and then we'll follow it up with a manual release to get off any pressure. So there you go. With the Ultra, this is how he works. Other ones are just a little different. So when you first plug it in, it obviously is on pressure cook, which is cool. We'll hit the button once. Now it's flashing some stuff. At this point, we really can't do too much unless you hit the button again. Now it's flashing the time. Now we can put him up. I don't want to go an hour and a half or anything like that. There we go. That's 90 minutes. We'll hit that again to lock him in, and now we'll hit start. And now he's on. And just like that, this guy's going to come up to pressure, cook, and let us know when he's done. This is a good time to do your prep work, right? So if there are some vegetables you want to do, Maybe you want to peel some carrots, cut up some potatoes, have them ready. The cabbage, you can cut that into wedges or however you want to slice that. You can have that sitting on the side. Because with this recipe, we're going to do things a little separate. With a normal pot that's easy to lift the lid and stuff, you get halfway through the cook or so, you might start throwing in some of your vegetables, and then of course you put the cabbage in last because he doesn't require much. Here, it's kind of a pain to have to let pressure off, put everything in, put it back on, finish with the meat and everything. Here, it's just so easy. You let this guy cook, you take him out, you put your veggies in, and then it doesn't take too long for them, and then you're all happy. And that's how it's going to go. So right now, we're just going to go ahead and let him cook. All right, it's actually been 80 minutes, so I'm going to actually pull it now, and we're going to do a 10-minute now to release. If your meat is about 1.5 inches thick and it weighs around 3 pounds, 80 minutes pretty much works. 75 minutes might work, who knows? Kind of like in that ballpark, right? We just don't want to do it for 2 hours and turn it into complete mush, right? But if you have a heavier one, like 4 pounds, then maybe you can do it for 90 minutes. Or if it's, say more than 1.5 inches thick, maybe it's 2 inches thick, then you can add 5, 6, 7 more minutes, right? It just depends upon the size of the meat here. Mine was kind of weird shaped. Mine started out at a little over 1 inch thick and worked its way up to 2 inches. In the middle was right around 1.5 inches. A good portion was about 1.5 inches thick. So for mine, I'm going to do it for about 80 minutes here. Had it been more thicker all the way across, then for me the 90 minutes would probably be more a little appropriate. So just keep it in mind. 75, 80 minutes or so is probably good for 1.5 inches. Thicker than that, give it a little bit more. When the 10 minutes is up, we'll then do the express or the quick release. All right, it's been 10 minutes now, so we're going to go ahead and do release the rest of the stuff, the pressure. So we're going to go ahead and hit the button here. There we go. All right, this little piece dropped, so we're good now. So we can go ahead and open this up. Smells really good. So let's go ahead and get this meat out onto a platter here. All right, let's go ahead and get this bad boy out. This thing looks fabulous, if you can see all that. Ooh! So this little 3-pounder cooked down a little bit. Looks like some of that fat rendered off. So I'm going to go ahead and just foil this up. I want to make sure they stays warm. You need to let it rest for 10, 15 minutes before you slice it. We always recommend that when you're dealing with hunks of meat. And we need to get the vegetables going. So while he's resting, we're going to get the vegetables going. I'm probably going to just put this in the oven on warm just to make sure he stays warm for us. All right. We're going to go ahead and strain out some of these solids here. They've definitely have flavored the liquid. So the vegetables are still going to benefit from the flavoredness. It's just I don't want to get some of this mushy stuff all over it. And got the bay leaves out. We got all that spice mix stuff. And you can just see that stuff that contributed to the flavor of the cooking liquid that will flavor the meat and our vegetables. But I don't want that stuff all over my vegetables, so that's why we're doing this step. So let's get cooking. All right, we're getting closer to the end goal of eating, because that's what we're here for, right? Cook and then eat. So we just went ahead and strained out some lovely stuff, and that's what we're left with. We still got a little bit of the fat, grease, whatever you want to call it, from the meat that got rendered. Potatoes, I think, will have a good time absorbing some of that. That should be tasty, right? Like I said, the broth just smells great. That's all I can say. If you like beef. If you like beef and you like everything associated with, that is just great. The beer gives it a different smell, aroma, but I still think it's great. And I'm sticking with that story. All right, so we just put the broth in there. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna put some potatoes in here. I have about 10 of the red potatoes, you know, they're not that big. And I just cut them in half. We'll see what we can get in here. Some I think are gonna be submerged, some might be above. I really don't care. They're gonna be good. You could probably get by with less, but we like potatoes, and since we went through all the trouble to get all this great flavoring and this great liquid, it's only worth to make sure you're happy, right, for a few meals. So that's what we're aiming for. Almost got them all in there. If you're using bigger potatoes, you can obviously quarter as necessary or something, cut into thirds, whatever. But like I said, these guys were relatively small. I cut them in half, I'm done. If you're gonna get with little baby potatoes, you can probably just throw those in whole. What I also have here is I have 5 carrots that weren't reasonably large. They're just average diameter. So we went and cut those up. A lot of times you might cut these things into like maybe 2-inch chunks. So it's whatever you want. You can use the little baby petite ones. Then you don't really have to prep those. You just throw them in as is. So it depends on what you really want to do. So that's in there. Yay. We took a small head of cabbage, and you can kind of see. Amy just basically chunked it up into a bunch of pieces. You can cut nice little wedges. Commonly people will cut up 5, 6, 8, whatever you want to do. I don't want it falling apart. All right, we're going to put these little guys in here. This little guy almost wants to fall apart, at least that one did, and he's not even cooked. Let me get the last guy in here. All right, he will. And you do know that this, besides being a pressure cooker, it's also a multi-cooker, right? And one of the tools you can get from Instant Pot is a glass lid that allows you to then cook things like soups and stuff where you might want to put a lid on, but you don't want to put the pressure cooker lid on. So you can just put the glass lid on here, and we're going to change some settings, and we're ultimately going to steam this bad boy. So let's get cooking. All right, we're on soup broth. We're going to knock that down to 10 minutes. Hit that again. And then we hit start. It's on. It'll come up to temperature, count down, and then 10 minutes later, we should be good to go with the cabbage. And of course, all the other stuff in there too, right? All right, vegetables, cabbage are all done. We have a few potatoes and carrots here for sampling, right? The rest are staying nice and warm. We gotta get this meat sliced. And I'm gonna tell you, a little birdie told me that this thing tastes marvelous. So we're gonna get ready to do that. I'm looking up here and I'm seeing what appears to be grain, kind of like going in this direction. So I'm pretty much assuming that the grain's going lengthwise, which kind of makes sense because commonly you cut against a grain like that. So that's what we're gonna do. This originally started out 3 pounds. I don't think it's anywhere near 3 pounds anymore, but it tastes great anyways. When you're cutting this, you might want to use a roast beef knife or an electric knife because the meat is going to be very tender. If it was a more robust piece of meat like it was a couple hours ago, then you could use any knife. But here, we want nice, clean, sharp cuts. It'll be beautiful. Cheers. Now that's tasty. Has just enough salt in it that it tastes like regular corned beef without it being, oh my God, it's a salt lick. So no, this is great. And it just has explosive flavors. So, see, we'll probably want it about that thick, maybe, Boo Boo. Does that look good?
Sure.
All right. A little thicker. All right, the part we've been looking for. We got food, yay. In case you saw me earlier, I totally approve. The meat is wonderful, but we got to do it officially now, right? So, one thing I do want to show just really quickly here. It looks like a mess, but this cabbage, you see how liquidy that is? That stuff absorbed and then slowly drained of the liquid from the pot. I'm not normally a fan of cabbage. You know, Brussels sprouts, you can also use that too as well if you want. But because it has all that tasty liquid in it, it gives it a really good flavor. So I approve of all that. Let's go ahead and get some meat here. It's gonna be great. Some cabbage, which normally I'm not too fond of. Here. Yeah. Get some carrots. Normally, potatoes, I need, I don't know, help, right? Like ketchup is always good. Butter is always good. Just depends what you're doing, right? Carrots, I normally need butter. All right, so without further ado, just take a fork. This is brisket, right? Normally supposed to slow and low barbecue for like massive hours, or if you boil it, half the time. Here, pressure cooker, 80-minute cook time, 10-minute release. Came up to temperature. That took a few minutes, but overall, it didn't take that long compared to other stuff. Get that all in there. I'm just eating them by itself. It's really juicy. It did break down, you know, the collagen, a lot of good stuff in there. So if you leave it out, yes, it will dry out. But if you keep it in a container with some liquid in it and don't expose it to the air, it will stay nice and moist. Cabbage, just by itself. Jeez, eat with a fork here. Really good. Potatoes don't have anything on them other than just the juice that was cooked in. I suppose if you're creative and you got an extra couple of minutes, you could have probably taken them juices and maybe make a gravy or something and then pour that over here. Because if you do any of that, that's just extra points, right? And then carrots to me always gotta have butter. If they're cooked, but these guys, they're tasty. They have a lot of flavor from that. They taste really good. The meat is very flavorful. It has the salt from when they process it, of course, but to me it doesn't taste overly salty. The spices that they provided and maybe the peppercorn that I put in there gave it just a little bit of heat. So it's got a lot of flavor. I really like it. I say this method is really good. The only thing we may have done a little wrong was I got greedy and I put too many potatoes in there for the size of the pot. In retrospect, if I would put just a little bit less, then the cabbage would have sat a little bit lower in there and maybe it would have taken a few minutes less for it to cook. But overall, I think this is wonderful. I think in the future, I might want to try the other method, which is where you either do it on the stove or, you know, you have a Dutch oven and you throw it in the oven and then you can, put the vegetables as the meat itself is cooking. But I think this was really good. So, I mean, I give this a 2 thumbs up. This tastes really good. So, the idea of taking meat and boiling it, but really, this has a lot of flavor. The pressure cooker tenderizes it more than it already is. I mean, it's a tough meat. They try to tenderize it with their injections, but this really broke down the collagens, I don't want to say muscles, but all the good stuff that makes a brisket tough to start with. It broke that down. It's tender, but it has flavor. That stuff got in there. And the liquid is great. So I definitely give this a thumbs up. So I hope you give this a try. Let us know how you like it and all that good stuff. If you like this recipe, subscribe below, give us a thumbs up, and visit our website at amylearnstocook.com. We're also on Twitter and Pinterest at Amy Learns to Cook, and we're on Instagram at Cookin' with Amy. Cheers. Segment sound. Now. Segment sound. Segment sound.